Hey everyone, and welcome to the making of my herbal rinses. So my herbal hair care rinses are really great because one, apple cider vinegar is amazing for your hair. Two, when you infuse herbs into apple cider vinegar, it just makes that apple cider vinegar amplified into all of the herbal goodness that is in the herbs. So in particular, when we're talking about apple cider vinegar rinses, so here is my apple cider vinegar rinse. This is a half a gallon here. I'm a reuser, so I do have just my apple cider vinegar bottles that I'm gonna repurpose and put back in there. That way when somebody orders, it's easy for me to just go ahead and pour it into the bottle really easily. These will be the little bottles that the apple cider vinegar hair rinse will go into. You really only need to use about a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons. You kind of have to configure it to your hair. Everybody is going to be a little bit different. I haven't washed these yet, so we're not going to fill them just yet. But they're just little 2-ounce bottles. I thought that would be a perfect starting point for people to try it out. And considering you only do an apple cider vinegar rinse, you can do it once a week, once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. It's really up to you. It's just kind of a conditioning treatment for your hair. And I'll talk just very briefly about apple cider vinegar. But so I thought 2 ounces would probably be perfect. And then I'll have my Mermaid Waves logo on there as well. So my apple cider vinegar is infused with herbs that are said to not only be good for the scalp, but also good for the hair as well. Since apple cider vinegar is really good to do a scalp rinse with, especially if you suffer from dandruff or itchy scalp, even irritated scalp, as long as you dilute it properly. Apple cider vinegar is actually on the acidic side, which a lot of people don't really understand or know much about the pH value. And sorry if you hear something in the background. I think my baby is scrubbing like something metal on the tile, a little metal teacup. It's like a decoration and accessory. So anyways, so apple cider vinegar runs at about a 3.5 on average pH, which means that it's more on the acid side. When we're discussing our hair and our skin is actually more acidic than it is alkaline. So when you're using an apple cider vinegar rinse, it's going to actually help to bring your hair back to alignment. A neutral state would be about a 7, but our hair actually runs at about a 4.5, I believe it is. It can differ from person to person depending on your age, your ethnicity, your type of hair, your type of skin, but that seems to be about the average. That's why a lot of people are really concerned with cosmetic products being pH balanced these days, which usually targets about a 5.5. Even though our skin mantle does tend to be a little bit more acidic than 5.5, 5.5 tends to be a very comfortable place, for products to work really well on our skin and on our hair. So when we're talking about an apple cider vinegar rinse, it's typically used after a shampoo treatment, and shampoos actually tend to be higher on the alkaline side. Detergents tend to be higher on the alkaline side. So if you use a shampoo bar, for instance, right, that shampoo bar is going to have lye in it. Lye has a very high pH. It's very high on the pH scale. How else do you say that? So also most detergents, any type of surfactants and shampoos, it's going to be really difficult to find shampoos that are pH balanced. And if you do, they're so mild that it might not even feel like it's doing much to your hair to actually clean it, because a product, an ingredient, has to be a little bit higher actually on the alkaline side to actually wash. Just the opposite. Something can also be acidic and cleanse. So now a lot of people have the misconception that apple cider vinegar is actually a clarifying agent. Now, although studies have shown that it is antibacterial and it can be used as a great cleaning agent, it doesn't always mean that it's a clarifying agent. So when we talk about apple cider vinegar, it's going to help to disperse oil, not exactly strip oil away. So if we're talking about, the science of disinfecting and things like that, that might be a little bit different. But when we're actually talking about stripping dirt and oil from our hair, from our scalp, apple cider vinegar, what it helps to do is to actually disperse the oil so that it's not all built up in a certain area. So it's a conditioning agent that's not harsh, that's not heavy, that's going to kind of leave your hair with this shiny, clarified feeling, but what it's really doing is just kind of dispersing your oils so that they're not as apparent, right? Because typically when our hair gets dirty, we get really greasy, like up around our roots, and then our hair gets kind of dry. So what's going to happen is that when you're doing an apple cider vinegar rinse, it's actually going to break up the oil that's at your scalp, and it's going to help to kind of drag it down your hair with the warm water. That's why your hair usually feels a bit more conditioned after an apple cider vinegar rinse. But because apple cider vinegar can have a negative effect on your hair and skin if used raw, straight, undiluted, which isn't recommended, you have to dilute this when you use it on your hair. So even though this has a pH value of a 3.5, you're not actually putting it on your hair at a 3.5. You're going to use about a tablespoon of it, and you're going to mix it with about 16 ounces of water. Water's average pH value is around 7. Now it can differ depending on if you have like a chlorinated, like a filter that filters out chlorine, and like the chemicals that they use to, purify the water so that we can use it at our homes. It could potentially mess with the pH value of water. But for the most part, you kind of have to think about math here, whereas if this is a 3.5, you're using a small amount of it and you're diluting it with a 7, you're hoping that you're getting the pH value adjusted just enough so that it's not detrimental to your hair. Because if you do use straight apple cider vinegar on your hair, it can have a negative effect because it is higher in acidity. Just like if you have something that's too high, that's alkaline on your hair, it can do permanent damage on your hair. If you use a detergent on your hair that is higher in an alkaline state, it's actually going to flare your hair cuticles up, and it's going to keep them there, and that's going to actually create a lot of damage, a lot of tangles in your hair. So a lot of people, when they're going through certain clarifying stages with their hair, they'll do something that's really high on the alkaline scale to cleanse everything that's out of their hair, detox everything that's out of their hair. It'll flare their cuticles up, but then they'll back it up with an apple cider vinegar rinse, which will then seal back down your cuticles. And now, so for people who have lower porosity hair, which means, one, it can be harder for moisture to get into your hair because your cuticles are flattened down, or two, it can be difficult for moisture to actually leave your hair, which leaves your hair more susceptible to something like hydral fatigue, which means that your hair shaft actually holds in too much moisture, making your hair almost kind of mushy. So apple cider vinegar is a really great alternative to shampoos or to any other type of detoxing treatment. It's fairly natural. Of course, it is natural, not fairly natural. And it's just going to be one of those things that it's really nice. It's a really nice self-care item to use on yourself every once in a while. Again, you can kind of test out how much to use. I do recommend starting out with a tablespoon. If you feel like you can up it just a little bit, up it, maybe a half a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon. Everybody's hair is going to be different depending on your porosity, depending on your texture, your density of your hair. Somebody with higher porosity might actually benefit amazingly from apple cider vinegar rinses because higher porosity hair, their hair tends to have their cuticles flared out more often, which makes it easy for moisture to get in, but it also makes it really easy for moisture to come out, which leaves a lot of higher porosity hair types more dry. So when you use use an apple cider vinegar on a higher porosity hair type as a rinse before you hop out of the shower, it's actually going to close up that cuticle and help to keep some of that moisture back in there. But if you are a lower porosity type, meaning your cuticles already are down, and if anything, they might have trouble kind of flaring out a little bit, this could create some type of a coating or make it more difficult for moisture to actually get into your hair. So you really kind of have to play with this, you know, start out with a tablespoon and move up or down from there. But apple cider vinegar rinses tend to be really great all around. I particularly suffer from dry scalp, and so I have found that apple cider vinegar rinses actually does really help to kind of break up any of that dry skin that's on my scalp, and actually helps to kind of calm down any type of irritation, as long as you dilute it properly. So anyways, some of the herbs, I won't tell you all of the herbs because it's my secret, right? But some of the herbs that I do have in here is like your oh so wonderful rosemary. We know that rosemary is amazing for your hair. It adds shine and body to your hair, as well as rosemary as an herb has been shown to help hair growth and to strengthen your hair. We also have some shave grass in here, which the other word for shave grass is horsetail. I don't know why they call shave grass horsetail, except for that maybe I haven't done my research on why they named it that. I'm just like, whatever, it has two names, okay. But my theory is that maybe it's so good for your hair that it leaves your hair like a horsetail. I don't know. So anyways, so those are just a couple of the herbs. I do have some calendula in here too, for people who have dry, irritated scalps like myself, and it might help to kind of add to those benefits to, kind of help to detoxify your scalp and things. So anyways, so today I am going to be filtering this, obviously, get all the herbs out, and then I'll be putting them in my bottles. I'll be labeling them, and then I don't have my labels for my 2-ounce bottles printed out yet, or else I would go ahead and just do the whole process for you guys today. But I did want to come on and just talk a little bit about apple cider vinegar in general, and then I'm going to go ahead and not talk, and I'll probably, speed this up a little bit and just let you guys kind of watch my process a little bit here. And then if I do end up printing out a label in the next day or two, I'll go ahead and film that process and add that to this video as well, so that I can go ahead and get these apple cider vinegar hair rinses up on my Etsy account. So if you are watching this, go ahead and check out my Etsy link. It is down below. I sell herbal self-care products, so whether that is an herbal capsule, or it's a salve or hair care items, anything like that, it'll be on there, as well as I do tie-dye. So I've got tons of cool tie-dye stuff on there as well. Of course, you're probably not going to see any butters or salves just yet. I have some oils actually waiting to use for that. The next couple items I have up is actually an oiled scalp treatment. So it's going to be organic, unfiltered, unrefined olive oil that is infused with a lot of beautiful herbs as well. Some of the same herbs that are in here actually, to just help with that soothing of the scalp, to moisturize the scalp for people who have dry irritation. I want to say this very, very lightly. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even an herbalist. If anything, I'm kind of an herbalist in training maybe. So I don't want to make claims or anything like that. I'm pretty much just speaking of kind of like the properties of the herbs and, basic research, what you can do online of what is apple cider vinegar good for on your hair and scalp? You know what I mean? Same thing with the oil and the herbs that I'm going to be putting together for a scalp oil. So anyways, so let's go ahead and get started. So I do want to state also, just in case you're wondering, I am actually a trained cosmetologist. I worked in the field for a very short period of time. I moved around a lot, so it was always hard for me to keep a job for very long. And then when I finally decided to seriously get back into doing hair, I ended up getting married and got pregnant, and I decided to be a stay-at-home mommy. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background, because I'm hoping anyways that my specialty will be actually making hair care items. That's kind of more so what I'm passionate about. So this is going to be kind of my first hair care item for you guys. So let's get started. Wow, you can really smell that rosemary. That is probably the strongest smell here.
Dumping some.
Yeah, that's okay.
And the pepper.
Yep, that's why I put that paper there.